All right. Can you hear me all right, yeah? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm, when I say an RS, an ASRS, that's what I'm talking about. You can see it there. It's all close. It's very, very close. There's the rail on the ground that actually the AGV runs along, right? And you're racking both sides. So it's a very narrow aisle. You get a lot more into the warehouse, obviously, with it. It's a very narrow aisle, and that's it up and down. That's a man up, man down. It's a cage where the man stands into, or the woman steps into, the warehouse operative, and they go up and down the racking and they pick. Okay, they pick what they need, and then the machine takes them up and down, takes them back down, brings it up to the end of the aisle, and you pass the stuff out. That's just one system, um, and that's the ASRS system. All right, and then the other one is the pedestrian crossing. That's what we're talking about, pedestrian crossing earlier on. Just to give you some idea of what we're actually on about. Um, Now, with regards to PPE, as I said to you, it is the lowest layer of protection available to all warehouse operatives. Okay, it is crucial to preventing mishaps, obviously with material handling devices such as your power pallet truck, your forklift, but it doesn't give you 100% protection. Safety shoes with the steel toes, yes, they have to meet the CE standard, right? They are designed to provide a barrier, and the barrier is just really for dropped objects, dropping something onto your foot, as in objects in motion, right? As in your power pallet trucks. Um, the other type of PPE, obviously, is the high vis, right? And again, it's legislated that you wear one. You have to wear it. And again, I come across forklift drivers without it on them, and they'll say, "But I'm on the forklift all the time. The forklift is a big yellow machine. People are going to see me." No, you must wear it. It's part of your PPE. You have to wear it at all times. All right. Visitors, other people from office administration team, they coming into the warehouse must put on the high vis, right? Um, they provide, a valuable layer of protection for everybody, and everybody should and must wear them going into a warehouse. Um, Again, it has to be embedded into the local administrative controls, right? And it must be required in all procedures or rules that this protective, equipment must always be used. All right, always be used. Now, um, with regards to Georgie's gone missing now. With regards to how do we avoid injuries and fatalities, that's just giving you an oversight there. But warehouses, they pay a critical, or sorry, play a critical role in our economy. You know, by serving as hubs for the transportation, storage, and distribution of all types of materials, the backbone of commerce. As the backbone of commerce, they help keep businesses and industries running. Strong. However, the fast pace and the demanding operations of warehouses also make them potentially hazardous workplaces. Okay. Now, I'm I'm going to more or less outline the top warehouse safety tips. Okay. And, you know, again, by you following those tips, um, you will find that they will help save you from injury. Okay. Um, Again, it's up to you to keep yourself safe in the warehouse. The company should do everything in its power, right, to provide the necessary PPE and the necessary equipment to prevent manual handling, and also to prevent casualties and fatalities within the warehouse. But, it's often overlooked, that we need to stay injury free. We need to avoid the thousands of accidents that occur in warehouses every year, right? And also on the job fatalities, right? They're just They shouldn't happen, but unfortunately they do. And again, when you think about it, a collision or an accident, it doesn't just happen. There has to be a causation behind it. And 9 times out of 10, 91% of accidents and fatalities in warehouse is caused by human error. All right. Forklift accidents, collisions with pedestrians, or falling loads off racks are common. Slips, trips, and falls, where there's clutter or spills, like they create major hazards. Improper lifting and material handling, back injuries. Back injuries are very, very common in the warehousing industry. Loading dock accidents, employees falling from the docks is, believe it or not, a frequent one. I've actually witnessed a forklift that I drove out of a dock, literally drove out of the dock and ended up like so on the tarmac outside. Traps and storage is another one. Improper stacking or the storage of materials is quite risky. And then, of course, you've hazardous materials, chemicals, or other dangerous substances that you're dealing with. Now, if you find that you're going to work in a chemical warehouse where they store chemicals or other substances, as in dangerous goods, you will be trained in a chemical awareness course, right? You won't have to do ADR, right? But chemical awareness course, you will have to do. And again, the company will provide that to you. You don't have to worry about that. But if we keep ignoring all these risks or failing to take proper precautions, well, then it is going to lead to serious injury or even, God forbid, death. But if we adopt essential warehouse safety practices, it is possible to avoid becoming just another statistic. All right. And the very first key to warehouse safety is for companies to cultivate a proper safety mindset. And that means taking workplace hazards seriously rather than ignoring the risks or assuming accidents only happen to others and not to you. When you are safety minded, right, you will make smart decisions to protect yourself proactively rather than reacting after it's too late. It'll become second nature, right, to take steps to minimize any dangers, that you encounter on the job. And there are ways to develop a safety mindset, sorry. And again, attending all the required safety training sessions and taking notes, listening, and giving it all yours to those training sessions, or reading and following safety rules, safety signs, warnings, identifying the hazards before starting any task. Having a look around the warehouse before you get about your forklift and start loading and unloading, or picking and packing goods. Another one would be only using equipment that you've been trained on properly. If you have a counterbalance, a reach, and a power pallet truck, you need to be trained on all three before you use them. If you're not trained on it, you don't use it. Full stop. Although you're used to using and trained fully on a counterbalance, if there's a reach truck there or a side loader there that you haven't been trained on, you do not operate it. Full stop. Like this program here will show you train you how to use a counterbalance. It will train you how to use a reach truck and, of course, a power pallet truck. But let's just say there's a side loader there, which is different to all three mentioned. Well, you don't use it unless you've been trained on it. And if they have one on the premises, look to get training on it. Okay, ask about training. It shows your commitment to the company. It shows that you're interested in what the company has to offer. All right. Never hesitate to ask questions or report concerns or near misses. A near miss today could be a fatality tomorrow. So always report them. Again, you setting an example by working carefully at all times, it's looked on as being, proficient in the safety mindset. It also helps the culture of the workforce in that particular warehouse, by you setting the example of working carefully and working safely at all times. If you make the workplace safety a priority, right, that is the beginning of the right mindset and the right culture. And that will protect you as you operate in the warehouse. But it's okay, making it a priority and having the right mindset, but you have to put that mindset into practice, right? Again, by dressing for safety with the proper PPE is one step. Um, taking in any warehouse or take any warehouse, and use the PPE that's provided, right? Any gear they give you, make sure you use it because it's there for a reason. It's there to prevent or reduce injuries. Like in some places, you have safety glasses. That's to protect the eyes, from impacts or dust or chemical splashes. Work gloves, normally the leather gloves that prevent cuts if you're handling materials. We spoke about the steel toe boots, reinforced toes, to prevent crushing or injuries to the feet. Hard hats. Hard hats again help protect the head from falling objects and impacts. Okay. Hearing protection, earmuffs or plugs, again preventing gradual hearing loss. Dust masks. Dust masks prevent. It's important when working around dust or chemicals. It prevents inhalation. Okay, but all these things only work when you actually wear them and wear them correctly. Your job in the morning time is to inspect your PPE, right, before you use it, and you're checking for any defects or damage. If there is, replace it, right? Replace it immediately. The other way you can actually, use your mindset is staying focused, right? Stay focused on your work and avoid rushing. While warehouses tend to be a fast-paced environment, and normally it's focused on productivity. I know productivity is important, but it should never ever come at the expense of safety. When you feel rushed or are busy with demanding tasks, it is vital to stay focused and avoid unsafe shortcuts. Move carefully rather than running in the warehouse. Take the time to do things the right way. An example of that would be, never throw a tool or a material to a coworker or toss an object through the air. Make the effort to walk over and carefully hand it to somebody. Because, if you throw it, it could cause injury to the person catching it or somebody, walking in between you and the person receiving it. Rushing around the warehouse will lead to accidents. And there's also something else that leads to accidents in a warehouse, and it's commonplace in most warehouses, and that is horseplay. Horseplay and distractions are very, very dangerous. While horseplay may seem harmless, but it has no place in a warehouse environment. Clowning around, acting the clown will lead and can lead to slips, to collisions, to being, struck by moving vehicles. You always need to take safety serious. So horseplay, there is no room for horseplay. Another example of horseplay is lads jumping on the back forklift. Give us a lift down the warehouse there. Save me walk. It's against the law. They shouldn't be on that forklift, full stop. And if someone jumps on your forklift, you stop the forklift immediately, and either they get off or you get off. Because believe me, if they're involved in an accident sitting on your forklift, who's to blame? You. You're driving it. But he jumped on when it doesn't matter. You should have stopped the forklift and made sure he got off again. And if he doesn't, you get off. And you don't. Take the key with you. Avoiding distractions is also key to remaining safe. Using your mobile phone, listening to music while operating the machine. There's George. He's trying to get back in again. He must be having problems with his Wi-Fi. They can all quickly lead to disasters. You need to be fully focused on your work and not on personal activities. Good housekeeping also prevents hazards. It might not seem a priority, but good housekeeping is essential for warehouse safety. Clutter, rubbish, or spills, they can all create serious falls and slip hazards. So general tidiness, it reduces fire risk. It also makes the workplace a lot safer for everyone. And again, if you come across the likes of rubbish, dispose of it properly in designated containers. Don't leave it lying around. It only takes a couple of minutes to keep a place tidy. Spills, clean them up immediately before they create a slip. And again, use a wet floor sign until the area dries itself. Make sure all your oils, your exits from oils, your walkways, and your evacuation routes remain clear and passable at all times. A fire exit shall not be blocked by anything, because you don't know when you're going to need to use that. So always ensure that your fire escape routes and your fire exits are kept clear of any material. Again, stacking materials. Don't stack them haphazardly. Use the proper storage methods. Uneven surfaces or broken surfaces or other housekeeping issues, again, report them. And don't wait till tomorrow, or don't wait till, which Johnny Mac is on tonight, he'll report it for me. Let him report. No, you report it. Because if you don't report it, it could cause an incident or accident or a collision. Just be careful with that. If you notice something, you report it. With regards to handling hazardous material safely, most warehouses store some hazardous materials, right? It could be chemicals, it could be batteries, it could be compressed gas, or other hazardous substances. But special care needs to be taken when working around anything that's potentially dangerous. And like I said earlier, if you've got it in the warehouse, you have to receive hazard, hazard, awareness or chemical awareness courses. And that should help you recognize all warning labels and understand the MSDS, which is the materials safety data sheets. And for every hazardous good, right, that's in that warehouse, there has to be an MSDS, right, material safety data sheet for every type of hazard, every type of chemical, right, that's in that warehouse. That has to have, and it's got to be in an area where all the data sheets are, obvious to anyone working in that area. So watch for the safety data sheets, material safety data sheets. The other thing is, you've got to use your proper PPE when you're handling hazardous materials. You must be shown how to contain or clean up a spill safely. Um, you must also be able to interact first aid response if somebody is exposed. All right, so know what's needed and what part of your first aid training would be required if people are exposed. If you follow all safety procedures that are outlined on any warning labels and material safety data sheets, you won't have issues. And if you take part in any additional safety training relating to hazardous materials, you won't have incidents. But the important thing that I need you to remember is not to take risks with dangerous substances. Before you put a forklift or a blade of a forklift in under a pallet with dangerous substance on it, the first thing you should do before you even attempt to enter the blades under that pallet or around that container is to read the hazard warning signs on the container and know what to do if something happens. Easiest thing in the world to do is misguide your blade from under the pallet into the side of the drum. And you have a burst drum. Your blade is sticking into the drum. What's the first thing you do? You go to pull the blade back out again, don't you? Well, sometimes it's safer to leave the blade in there until you get a spill kit or you get the proper masks or the proper safety equipment before you pull the blade out. Little things like that you should be trained up on before you enter a chemical warehouse. And none of us know at the moment. I asked you earlier on, have you any idea where you're going to work? None of us at the moment know where we're actually going to work. So you could end up in, one of the warehouses in Ringaskiddy where they deal with hazardous goods. All right. So again, think safety. Think of your own safety, especially around dangerous substances. And again, think before lifting and material handling. Moving and handling materials manually does lead to huge numbers of back injuries, strains, sprains, right? Every year in warehouses, there are numerous accidents that lead to back injuries. But they are all avoidable if people would only take a moment to think before lifting or moving that object. Has everybody in the class done manual handling? No, yes. Graham hasn't. Yeah. Manual handling. Do you all remember the 8 basic principles of manual handling? Not easy to remember, right? But in that training, you've been told, you assess the task first. The very first thing you do is assess the task, right? So before you even move it, you've got to make sure that you understand what the product is, what's in the product, what type of containment is around that product, and the weight the product is, right? So you have to ask yourself, is the object too heavy or awkward for you to lift it alone? Once you pick that up, will you be able to see where you're actually going? Or is it going to block your vision? The route you're going to take, is it clear of all obstructions and hazards? That you're not going to trip. But if you're in doubt at all, make sure you get the help of a coworker or use a mechanical lifting device like a hand truck or a pallet truck or a forklift. I don't want you risking injury by lifting more than you can handle safely on your own. If you do decide that you could safely make a lift alone, Use the proper lifting techniques to avoid injury. Now, again, most of you have done manual handling. So, let's just refresh some of them steps. If you get close to the item that you're going to pick up, and if you widen your stance, you're doing that, for balance. You squat down, bending at the knees, not the waist, and you keep your back straight, as in the natural curve of the spine. Okay? You take a firm grip and you hug the load close to your body before you straighten your legs to lift. You use your legs to lift the body, not your back and not your arms. You're pushing up with your legs. But that box or that item should be close to what we call the center of gravity. And the center of gravity of your body is around your belly button. That's approximately where the center of gravity is. So you lift it and you're pulling it in close to you. Your elbows are stuck into your torso. Excuse me. You have to avoid twisting the body when you've picked up the load. You have to move your feet first. You move your feet in the direction you want to go, not twisting the body. Walk around using your feet to turn. All right. Use your leg muscles to set the load back down. Again, bending at the knees. And again, always take the extra few seconds to lift it correctly. And that, believe it or not, could spare your back considerable pain further down the road. What I have found is those of us with back injuries, we actually injured them, in our early 20s, late 20s, early 30s. But it didn't show until we hit the 50s or 55 years of age. That's when it shows. But try and get that across to younger people is very, very hard. It's a macho thing. I can do this. I'm strong enough to do it. That's grand. You might be able to do it now, but the damage you do now will only show when you hit the 50s. And that's when you start suffering extreme pain. And you have to go in and have a bone fusion done or a metal fusion done in your spine. And that's, believe me, that is not a task, or it's not an operation you want to go for. So again, just follow those steps, and plan your route before moving any materials. Take time to map out the best route to your destination. Choose the paths that are clear, direct and free of any potential hazards. Always look for any tripping dangers, such as, electric cords or electric extensions leads or hoses, or even, an uneven floor. A break in the floor, not even a break, a slight pothole in the concrete you could trip in. You could put your foot into and go over because of the load you're carrying. Always watch out for fork trucks and other moving equipment. And, be careful, especially if you need to turn tight corners or pass through narrow openings. It can be dangerous if you're carrying something. Always ensure that there's adequate space is available, at your destination where you're setting it down. That's very important. You need to be able to set it down safely. And if need be, transfer your weight to push it in onto the shelf. And again, planning your route in advance will help avoid any incidents or accidents while you're in transit with that box. If you're going to use mechanized material handling equipment, well then, you've got to know how to use it and use it safely. Okay. You've got to use it correctly and use it safely. Again, it makes lifting and transporting material much, much easier. Okay. And more efficient, to be honest with you. But powered equipment also introduces risks if it's used improperly. You should always inspect any equipment before you use it. And you have to know the capacity ratings on it. Again, make sure you receive proper training before operating any powered equipment. Always check for damage and test controls prior to actually using it. Be careful not to overload the equipment beyond its weight ratings. And then, follow the manufacturer's instructions as to how to use it safely, or your tutor's instructions as to how to use it safely. Taking time to use warehouse equipment correctly, that goes a long way towards preventing accidents and injuries. All right. With regards to stable loads, right, or securing unstable loads, again, when moving an overhead load or stacking material on a pallet, unstable items can easily fall or shift, right? So before you transport an awkward or an oddly shaped or precariously balanced load, make sure you arrange the items so the heavier objects are on the bottom for a lower center of gravity. Okay? Never ever overload the pallet. Each pallet has a weight restriction or a weight capacity. You need to know all this before you start loading it. Shrink wrap. It's a great idea. It's a great idea to secure the stuff on the pallet, but there's no sense in just shrink wrapping the boxes. You've got to shrink wrap the boxes to the pallet. Otherwise, if you shrink the boxes, the whole load could move off the pallet. So you shrink the boxes to the pallet. So the shrink goes around the pallet itself. All right. A load that's not properly arranged and secured will put you, and the equipment at risk. So take steps, obviously, to stabilize the load, right? And just make sure you're protected. Pallets themselves make moving, stacking, and storing material much simpler. But the pallets themselves also have hazards that are worth noting. If you're dealing with pallets, you must wear thick gloves, right, to avoid the slivers or nails puncturing your hands. Always inspect the pallets and remove any protruding nails. Missing boards or any other damage has to be rectified. You never stack empty pallets any more than 4 feet high, right? Or more than a few pallets steep. If you're stacking pallets, always stack them flat, again to avoid a falling hazard. If you're standing up against a wall, the danger is they could fall over. All right. Who's got the birds in the background? Somebody has birds tweeting in the background. Am I right or wrong? Am I hearing things? Is there birds? Am I?
George, is it? I think.
Huh?
Could be
George,
Georgie there.
have you birds now? Eugene, have you birds in the background? Yeah? You have, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, seems to be gone now. All right, no, that's no problem. It's just like I heard in the background. So, if you've got a pallet standing at the side, beside a wall or beside a pallet rack, it could fall down. If it's stacked flat, it can't go anywhere, can it? And this is what I'm talking about, the mindset for safety. Think safety all the time. Get rid of those risks. Again, avoid standing on pallets. Standing on pallets can be dangerous. your foot could go down between the timber, right? Another horrible thing I see happening in a lot of warehouses is people being lifted on pallets up the rack to lift the box off, right? That is, it's stupidity at best. It's very easy to fall off a pallet that's being lifted up a height. I've investigated a couple of accidents and it's been down. And, they try and blame the forklift operator. But the guy that's up on the pallet is as bad as the forklift operator for allowing himself to be lifted up that height. You've got to be careful. Think safety at all times. All right. You want to reduce, painful injuries and other risks. So be very, very careful. Again, safe stacking procedures have to be followed. Proper stacking and storage of materials is vital again in warehouse safety. Improper storage, heightens the risk of stacks collapsing, creating falling object hazards, blocking fire suppression systems, and preventing emergency egress. So again, heavier objects, lower shelves, or stacks and lighter materials only above them. You should always try and stack all materials, or any materials, you should always try and stack them on the flat, solid basis rather than uneven surfaces. Alternate directions between the tiers and interlock sections, again, to add stability. Now, what I mean by that is, let's just say you've got a pallet of 25 kilo bags or 10 kilo bags. 10 kilo bags. Right? And you want to put, 20 of them on a pallet. You'll put 3 of them heading in that way and 2 of them heading in the opposite direction. And the next layer up, then you'll put 3 of them that way and 2 of them that way. So you're interlocking each layer of bags going up the pallet. Okay, that's the proper way of stacking pallets of materials like that. Right? If you don't do that, you're going to create issues, but the pallet will fall over when you go to lift it. So be careful with that. It adds stability, right? Just be careful how you do it. Do it with safety in mind. You'll do it right. Okay. Again, all pallet racking has a capacity, a load capacity, and all racking aisles and beams should be marked, right, with that capacity. Never ever never let your load exceed the capacity for the different racks. Okay, never allow the materials on a pallet to touch a ceiling or any overhead pipes or electrical lines. You should always leave 18 inches of clearance, right, around fire sprinklers that are obviously in the ceiling, because that sprinkler needs adequate space to extinguish a fire in any part of the aisles, within its reach. So you've got to leave enough space between it and the top pallet. You've got to take time to store all materials securely. So proper stacking, right, is important, because that will again prevent, say, serious accidents or incidents. Be careful with it. It's not easy. And you will find it through your forklift training, how to stack and pre-stack and get things ready for warehouse racking. Okay. They won't train you up on the racks itself and the capacity of the racks. I don't believe they do. If they do, it's another bonus. But you will be taught that in the warehousing structure you're going to, or the warehousing business you're going to. It'll be part of your induction training, right? When you go into a business, they'll have to show you all these things. You can be sent out to the warehouse manager and he'll do a walk around with you and show you the different rack systems and show you the different capacity, weight capacity on the. They could be all the same. It could take 3 euro pallets and it could take a maximum of 3 tons on that, particular level. Or you could have racking, this oiler racking 3 ton, this oiler racking 1.5 tons, and the next oiler racking 10 ton the beams can take. But you will need to be shown that, and also the all racking systems must be labeled. So it has to say on the rack at the end of the lane, it says the type of racking, right? And then on each beam, it'll say the weight it can take, the capacity of that beam. So, you will know all that, but you need to be shown and trained up on it before they let you up on a forklift. Okay, but be very careful when removing stretched or shrink wrapped pallets. All right, because again, if they're close in together, as you're pulling the pallet out, the shrink could actually catch the other pallet and pull it with it. Okay, so be very, very careful if they're tight. Now, normally pallets will take 2 standard pallets. Sorry, normally bays will take 2 standard pallets, or they'll take 3 euro pallets on the length. Okay, but those 3 euro pallets on the length, 20 stacks high, could be very, very tight. And if you're pulling out one pallet, you've got to be careful that you're not actually pulling the next pallet with it, where the pallet could be just the timbers of the pallets could be very tight together, or the shrink wrap could be very, very tight together. And enough of it will give it's strong enough to pull the pallet with it. So you've got to watch for all this and be careful with it. Okay. The other thing to be careful with wrapping, some pallets are not wrapped, they're banded, right? And be very careful if you're cutting one of those banded straps, because sometimes they snap violently and they're very sharp when they snap like that. They're the banding I'm talking about. Are you familiar with the banding? It's normally about 1/4 of an inch thick, and it bands around the pallet, the goods to the pallet, secures the goods to the pallet. Now, you snip that because it's tight. If you snip it, it's just going to fly. It's just going to let go because of the tightness of it before you snip it. And that in itself is very sharp. And it could, honestly, it could cut into your hands or your elbow, your arms, right? So always stand clear when you're cutting it. If the strap is going that way across the pallet, well, then don't stand, looking at the strap, stand to the side of it and, go in and cut it that way. So it'll go that way. You're standing here. The strapping is that way, right? Across the pallet. Snip it that way. So as the band will fly left or right and not towards you. All right. Again, use thick gloves. That way you can avoid injuring yourself from the strapping. Okay. With regards to, again, if you expect the unexpected, you can prevent incidents and accidents. If you stay visible and communicate with other operators in the warehouse, well, then you're enhancing that safety, that safety mind or mind safety. When you think of safety. Forklifts provide essential material transportation, within any warehouse. But forklift pedestrian impacts, awful and always or can also lead to many a traumatic and fatal injury. So practicing forklift safety requires cooperation between you as the forklift driver and any other pedestrian or worker that's on foot. As a pedestrian, always take the following precautions around forklifts, and that is making eye contact and communicating clearly with the operators before you actually approach that forklift. Always wear high visibility clothing, that stands out. It helps you stand out in the eyes of a forklift driver. Always avoid passing closely, behind or between a forklift and fixed objects. Never ever walk under a raised forklift. All right. Again, unless you're trained up on the forklift, don't attempt to operate it. And never attempt to ride on the back of a forklift when there's someone else driving it. And again, if you look at, what's that thing, YouTube, you'll see lots of accidents, incidents, where fools, is the only way to describe them, jumped on the back of forklifts when the forklift was driving down a mile. And as soon as they get to the end of the aisle, the forklift turns. The guy that jumped on the back of it has gone flying into a wall or into a rack, because there's nothing securing him to the platform of the forklift. So once the forklift turns at the end of the rack, he's gone one way, the forklift's gone the other. Simple things, it's just simple things that you've got to be careful of when you're in and around forklifts. The other thing is always yield to forklifts, but also don't assume that you've been seen. You've got to make your presence known. Always stay visible, and again, communicate with forklift drivers. That will help prevent tragic accidents or incidents. And one of the most important things to do when you're working in the warehouse is not to rely entirely on others for your own safety. You're responsible for your own safety, so don't rely on others to protect you. With regards to loading docks, right, they demand constant vigilance. Why? Because they're a high hazard area. I would suggest that nearly 25%, if not more, of warehouse accidents occur at loading docks, loading bays. Hazard like the deep drop, the major fall, it could be 4 foot of a fall. It could be 5 foot, right? The unprotected edge will make it, a uniquely dangerous zone. So you've got to play safe and stay safe at any loading docks. You got to ensure that the dock plates, right, are properly fitted. So the equipment won't run off the edge of it. You've got to watch for the forklifts and keep clear of all their paths. And again, never jump off the platform. Use the stairs or use your ladders to get up and down off it. Stay away from the ledges, especially when no truck is present, because there's nothing there to protect you from falling off. With regards to a trailer pulling onto the bay, if it doesn't have the systems you mentioned earlier about locking up the wheels, you ensure that the driver gets out of his vehicle, okay? And he chocks the trailer wheels to avoid, what we used to call trailer creep. It's where the trailer, when you come onto the trailer with the forklift, the trailer kind of just shunts forward. Be careful with that, right? Again, the dock surfaces should be kept clean and free of any kind of substance that will make it slippy. If you're working within a loading dock area, okay, it will demand your constant attention. And the only way you will stay safe working at these areas is by anticipating or percepting hazards and, instilling proactive control risks, proactively control the risks. All right. So what's the takeout from that? Well, while warehouses may appear simple, their operations involves many serious hazards and risks. But if you cultivate a proper safety mindset and follow essential precautions each day, well then warehouse workers will be able to avoid becoming a statistic. Practicing good housekeeping, properly storing and handling materials, using equipment safely, communicating hazards, right? That will eliminate the danger. Safety ultimately depends on the actions of every individual worker. So you need to stay alert, and you also need to make smart decisions. You need to work carefully, okay? And you need to proactively identify and mitigate any risks. Remember, you have the power to prevent warehouse accidents and return home safe to your family at the end of each working day. Always put warehouse safety, into practice to avoid injuries and fatalities in the workplace. By understanding the intrinsic challenges and hazards of warehouse work environments, you or the company has to offer you a comprehensive solution. And that is through tailored training, right, to the specific needs of your particular warehouse. You need to be provided with essential knowledge and practical procedures in order to navigate the dynamic, fast-paced workplace safely, right? And that will help reduce the high number of incidents, accidents, and fatalities. Okay, serious injury and fatality prevention has placed more rigor on areas of high exposure, including the warehouse and the dock operations. We spoke a lot about the hierarchy of controls, right? It is a time-tested approach to mitigating exposure. Exposure risk to motion, as in collisions, and gravity, as in the gravitational pull, dropped objects falling off racks. Whereas it is easy and therefore common to rally around inexpensive and quick fixes, greater risk reduction can be achieved through more deliberate approaches, such as the hierarchy, elimination, substitution, and engineering controls. Those top tier approaches has less reliance on company culture, employees' behavior, and common states, or stats that lead to workplace injuries. And also the availability of technology is there to reduce exposure risk in the warehouse environment. And that is it's as robust as ever. High level controls are a fundamental building block to protecting employees and contractors within a company's facility. That is how we minimize severe injury and fatality risks in a warehouse operation. Is there any questions on what we've discussed so far this morning? Any comments? I mean, we've gone through quite a bit this morning now. I have to say, quite easily, we've gone through it. Any comments?
When you said Euro pallets,
yeah,
is that like universal, or do we have like different pallets to them?
No, Euro pallets will be universal. They're a smaller pallet, right?
What's the bigger one?
Pallet. It's a standard pallet. Now, there is standard, and then there are larger pallets, depending on the type of product you want stored. I mean, I've seen, 8x5, 8 foot by 5 foot pallets, right? But the standard pallet is 4x4. And then the Euro pallet is, I think it's 3x2, right? Or 4x2, it could be. But you will get you get two standard pallets into a bay, a racking bay, right? A standard racking bay, or you get 3 Euro pallets on the length into that standard racking bay. But again, Euro pallets are generally, they be used, obviously, as the States, Europe, all over Europe, right? You will see a lot of Euro pallets out there. They're probably the most expensive pallet you have to buy, right? And you see these guys going around the vans picking up pallets, to repair them or make new pallets up out of them. They're always looking for Euro pallets. They'd nearly pay a warehouse supervisor to keep a few Euro pallets stored to one side, and they give them, 2 or 3 quid for each pallet. They'd make 18, 20 quid for each pallet, right? So Euro pallets, they're the most expensive, they're the most widely used, because they're the most, I suppose, they're the strongest pallet you can get out there. And when you get into where you'll see what I mean. They're a much more stronger pallet than the standard 4x4 pallet.
What are those ones that like you see in a place and like they can go in and just go look for themselves? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Say again, Mark. Sorry.
It's like blue pallets. Remember we had them once.
Yeah, blue.
A guy literally came into the warehouse and I was like, why are you here? And I was like, oh, I'm getting blue pallets. And I was like, oh no, it's like a lease thing. You lease these.
That's
we
right.
can get them whenever we want. We just go ahead and have a look and see if you have any. And if it's in use, like if it's not in use, we take them.
Yeah, well, that's I wouldn't allow anyone to take, especially blue pallets out of the warehouse, because blue pallets, again, they're a leased pallet from a company called CHEP. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And that company, yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, CHEP is normally stamped on them. They're blue pallet with white lettering CHEP, and a company purchases or leases those pallets. Let's just say they lease 100 pallets. Well, every stock take you get, you must have 100 blue pallets in stock. So if your driver brings out goods on a blue pallet, he's got to bring the blue pallet back. If he gets to a destination where they say, no, the goods must be left on the blue pallet, well, then they must replace that blue pallet to the driver, because they're very, very expensive. Again, like Euro pallets, they're a very strong pallet. Now, there's also a red pallet out there, just like the blue pallets. They operate on the same system, right? It's a rental. It's a rental palleting. But you never, ever give out a blue pallet to anybody, because, again, they're leased out to you, your company. Guys will come in and they will, look for them because they're worth a lot of money to them. But you could get somebody from Chef coming out to you to do an inventory on what blue pallets you have, but they'll never take them away from you. Your company has to release them to them.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. But like I said, there's another company, I don't know the name of the company, but they deal in red pallets. It's a deep red color. You'll probably see them soon enough. All right. Any other comments? No, all okay. Do you understand the meaning of minimizing severe injury and fatalities? Like, we've gone through a lot of areas this morning that, helps to minimize that risk. And the risk is always to you, the operator, right? You are the operative in a warehouse, whether it be driving the forklift. All right, George.
Okay. No, okay.
It's fell off your seat.
Yeah, now okay.
All right.
Sorry.
The risk is to you, whether it's, as I said, operating the forklift or just in the warehouse becoming a warehouse operative. You have to manage that risk. You have to be proactive. You have to be perceptive or anticipating any risk. You see an empty pallet lying on the floor, you pick it up and put it where it should be, right? There's a location for everything in a warehouse. You have a location for your skips. You have a location for all fire extinguishment equipment. You have a location for every pallet, the different types of pallets, right? You have a location for your forklifts. You have a location for charger units or fueling area, which would be outside the warehouse, right? But your charging area would be inside the warehouse. There is a location for everything in a warehouse. And you must ensure that every item that you come across is placed back into that location. By doing that, you're preventing incidents and accidents. Remember what I said earlier on, most incidents and accidents, all incidents and accidents, they're all preventable. But human error causes 91%. Human error, 91% of all incidents and accidents in a warehouse environment. So you and you alone can and will, prevent serious injury to yourself by just following some of the tips I gave you in that presentation this morning. Are we all okay with that? Okay. Let's get back to actually the forklift operation. Okay. Let me just share this with you. Okay, can you all see that now? Presentation? You can't see it, can you?
No.
No, it's gone off screen. Jesus. It's gone off. Oh, it's on screen. No, it's not. Where is it? Screen 3. That's what I had on screen 3.
You can see it now, yeah. It's there.
Ah, okay. Oh, sorry. I just had it on the wrong screen, did I? Yeah. Let me just move all your mug shots. That's it. Okay. Everybody okay with the pace we're going at? Yeah. All right. With regards to the operator, forklift truck driver or operator, again, just looking at a brief, your salaries range, and this, by the way, this is only an indicator. Depending on who you're working for, depending on your education, your experience, your skills, they all factor into the wages of a forklift operator. The lowest rate of pay will be 26,000 a year. And it can work up to 38, 42, 46,000. Right? When you look at the increase in demand for goods and services throughout the country, you can count on serious job stability within the industry. So, as long as you earn your forklift operator certification, you will get a job in the industry because there's demand out there for operators, right? But just be sure to pay attention to any forklift operator's description, as you apply for the jobs. It'll give you a good indication of your required duties and provide insight into your potential earnings. You're going to be operating a forklift that transports heavy goods to and from places, right? The total employed in forklifts is around 16,500 full-time licensed operators. And there's a growth rate of about 6% per annum. in the industry, right? So there is lots and lots of potential within this industry. Hence the reason why you've got these programs being run by the government. You know, this is a state-sponsored program. I think it's FET in Cork, isn't it? The FET, Future Education Program, right? So you've got it there. You know, you've got it. The sponsorship is there. So let's get out there, and you'll definitely find the work, right? Looking at the knowledge, you know, the knowledge itself. You know, this. What do you need? You know, it'll be a good thing to have mathematics. You know, and we all have a bit of, like, people say, oh, I know nothing about maths. You know, can you add 10 and 10? Yes. Can you take 16, 32? Yes. That's mathematics. You know, knowledge of arithmetic, geometry, you know, statistics, and their applications is good for you. It'll stand to you. You know, you don't need to have, you know, a fucking, what do you call it, a PhD in maths. But the level of understanding that you have of maths will stand to you. Having some knowledge of it. The English language, you know, knowledge of the structure and content of the English language, including the meaning and the spelling of words, of rules, of composition, and the course of grammar, will stand to you. But that's not saying that you can't get a job as a forklift driver without having, you know, a good understanding of the language. Because what a lot of companies are doing now is they're employing supervisors, right, who can speak, let's just say, Ukrainian and can speak English. And then they leave them to manage the Ukrainian speaking population of workers. Or, you know, it can be Arabic, or it can be, you know, French or German or anything at all. A lot of companies now, and I see it in the transport industry as much as I see it in the warehousing, where route planners, you know, if the transport company has, say, 10 or 12 Latvians or Romanians working for them, well, then the route planner looking after them will be able to speak their language. It's much the same in warehousing. So I wouldn't let the language be a barrier to applying for a job. Obviously, the better you understanding English, the better chance you have. But if it's a company that's employing a lot of non-nationals, well, then they'll have people, a structure in place where you will have people that understand the language and can proactively, you know, have discussions with the forklift operators. Production and processing, again, you know, knowledge of raw materials, of production processes, of quality control, costs, other techniques for maximizing the effective manufacture and distribution of goods, right? And the reason of manufacturing there is some of you may be going into the manufacturing industry. The warehouse is part of manufacturing. Others will be going into direct, you know, storage areas. You know, the likes of Cork Plastics, who have their own warehouse. You could be going to work for them, and they manufacture their own goods. Or you could be going to work for, you know, Prompto Dispatch, who'd run a warehouse, but with, you know, generalized product in it. And all their customers, Prompto's customers, would store their goods in there. Right, so there's a difference between manufacturing and distribution centers. But again, you get to know that as you go along, right? But manufacturing is a big area, as is distribution. Okay. Transportation. Transportation, knowledge, again, of the principles and the methods of moving goods. Right? When you think about it, in Ireland, there are 4 models of transportation in Ireland. Right? There's road, there's sea, there's rail, and there's air. Air transport is where it's the quickest, right? but it's the most expensive. Goods traveling by air, right, by plane. Rail, it's not as popular as it was back in the 60s and 70s, but guess what? It's actually coming back around. We're going around the circle we are. It's actually coming back around. We now have a freight department in Irish Rail, excuse me, Air Ireland, which, believe me, is great to see. We'll still need trucks on our roads, but one train, right, hauling containers could take the volume of containers that 400 trucks would be using. We're using 400 trucks to transport the same volume that one train can pull up and down the country. So we're all looking at the environment. We're all looking at climate, change. We're all looking at different things. We are now in this country looking at going back to the rails. And while it'll take long distance haulage off the road, you will still have your local haulage, because you have to get it from the boat to the train, which is done in the port and docks, right? There's no need for trucks in there. But then when it's delivered to the rail station for a destination, you will need something to unload it onto to get it to the front door of the premises. So you'll still need transport, you'll still need trucks, but it's all localized. If they get the rail system, right, as in they have the right locations. There's no sense in having Limerick Junction if we need to get into Limerick or we need to get into Tipperary. You have to have a proper system going through the main arteries of the country in order to get the rail to work efficiently. But rail is coming back, right? So watch this space for rail. With regards to sea, like, we don't have any inland waters really. We have the canals, we have the rivers, but we don't really. Again, back in the last century, they used the inland waters, right? The Liffey was used for bringing, the product from Guinness's right down along the Liffey. We also used the Royal Canal at the Grand Canal to move product out of Dublin, but not anymore, obviously. Right, so we depend on the sea. It's interaction between us and Europe, or us and America, the Americas and Europe, the UK. That's by sea, and then by road. Then there's 93.8% of each and every product that you see in the room behind you, right, is transported by road. 93.8% of all our goods travel by road at the moment. That's going to change. It's going to take time for it to change, but it's going to change. But you having the knowledge of the principles and methods of moving goods, right, will stand to you in your position as a forklift operator or warehouse operative. And by the way, there's something I definitely need to discuss with you, and that is career progression. You going in as a forklift operator or a warehouse operative most certainly does not mean that that's you for the rest of your life. I'm a warehouse operative. The career path or career progression for you, the potential is huge. I know guys that started off back in the 80s as a forklift driver with the likes of JMC, or even my company, Paramount Freight, back then, that became warehouse managers. And that led on to them becoming logistics managers for different companies. There's one guy in particular, Garrett Murphy, right? He is now the CEO of a major transport company. And he started in my warehouse back in 1984 on Ayrton Road in Tala. He got as far as his intercert. That's as far as he got. He left work after his intercert, right? And he started working straight away, 17 years of age, 16 years of age, actually. He started working and he just built his way up. He performed, with with the true belief that he was going to go places. And what's 84 is what? 40 years ago, was it? 40 years ago? There's my mathematics coming in, you see. 40 years ago. And 40 years later, he is now CEO of a transport company. So you don't have to get stuck, you know, where you start. You can develop and better yourself each and every time. Keep the eyes open, the nose clean, and the ears to the ground. Right? Push yourself at all levels, push yourself, and you'll get there. Right? You'll start with warehouse supervisor. You'll start with forklifts. You'll start then with warehouse supervision. Then you get warehousing management. Then you get into the administration inside. You become, you know, a manager, administration manager, or office manager, you know, and then you move on to HR. And then you move on up the road again to transportation management, right? And before you know it, you're into the directorships. That's if you stay with the company. You could move on to another company, or you could become self-employed. The potential is huge because the business you're going into, there is such a demand for that business, right, that there's always openings in it. But you will only go as far as you want to go. You only do, you know, you only do you only do what you want to do. But if you have it in you to push yourself on, you know, to do night courses in different areas of, you know, the business management, you will do well for yourself. All right. So it's up to you what you get out of this. Customer and personal service or personnel service. Again, having a knowledge of principles and processes for providing customer and personnel services. You know, a customer's needs assessment, meeting quality standards for services, and evaluation of customer satisfaction. Now, I run a course there. It's a 7-day course, actually. It takes 7 days, and it's all about customer service. You know, and we go through every area of customer service. Now, I'm talking about customer service on behalf of drivers, not retail. This is just drivers going through what a driver meets. Because remember, a driver is probably the only person, especially nowadays, that the customer will actually see. Because they'll go in online and they'll type an order, you know, and it goes to Hegarty's down the road. And Hegarty's will ring prompt to dispatch to come in and collect that and deliver out to Mary out in Knocknageek. And Mary receives it out of her house in Knocknageek, and the only person she sees from the time she ordered it is the driver. That's it. So again, if you're becoming a driver, you've got to realize you are the only face that customer sees. So you have to treat that customer, you know, the way you want to be treated yourself. And that's what customer service and personal service is all about. All right. Are we okay with that? All right. Again, you know, knowledge areas are ranked by their importance to the particular career that you are going into. Right? The next thing up then is skills. Right? And, you know, there are lots of different skills you need, and you will develop your skills once you go in and work, you know, in a company. You're not going to have these skills going into the company. Some of you might have some of them, right? But you're not going to have them all. Now, what I'm going to do now is, you know, the first day you've done it, we've covered a lot this morning, right? I'm going to break now and give you a decent break, and then we'll come back at 2 o'clock and we'll have a look at skills and a few other things. I'm not going to drag it out till 4:30 today. It's your first day in. You've only a couple of days with me. We'll get through what we need to get through in the 3 days, and then I'll hand you over to CV operations. All right. So I need you to go away, take a break from the computers, get some lunch, have a bit of a break, rest up for a while, and we'll come back at 2 o'clock and we'll just continue this program going forward. We will cover
excuse
everything
me.
in the 3 days. George, yeah. George,
Hello?
yeah.
Uh, Can I ask you something? Today I have signature social welfare.
You have to see the social welfare, yeah?
Yes, today.
Yeah, okay.
Can I go? I back soon.
Yeah, you
Please,
go
if
ahead.
you can.
No, you go ahead.
Because I have electric scooter. I back soon. Okay.
Yeah, there's no hurry at all. We're not back until 2 o'clock. If you're not back at 2, don't worry about it. Take your time. Go do what you have to do. And come back online then.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you
Okay,
very
George.
much.
Okay, no
Thank
problem.
you very much. Thanks, sir.
Thanks, take care. I presume you're all on a payment scheme from the FET, are you? Yeah. So you've all had to give off your.
Yeah.
Did you have to come off your labor and go on to this? Is that the way it works?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So it's important that you are all marked in, and I haven't done it in an attendance sheet yet. I'll do it at lunchtime. It's important that you're all marked in. So if you have to do things, don't worry. Just let me know. Right. If you let Jenny know, I'll have to mark you out for it. If you just let me know, I'll just leave you marked in for today. Right. That way you don't lose. The last thing I want is you guys losing, on a half day or a day. So just keep in touch with me. And it's only for 3 days anyway, guys. Right. I'll have your back. I'll just make sure you're marked up for attendance. All right.
Thank you.
See you all at 2 o'clock. Do take care and enjoy the bit of a break.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Pretty.